We know that journalism in Pakistan is not for the faint-hearted. We have seen a number of journalists being targeted under the country's notorious cybercrime laws, often by the Federal Investigation Agency, the FIA. A number of journalists have suffered. Recent cases, YouTuber Asad Toor, who is now detained under the cybercrime law. And it sends a chilling message to journalists across the country who are working in digital space. Could they be next? We've known in Pakistan for a number of years recently how the Federal Investigation Agency, the FIA, abuses its power and authority under the country's notorious cyber laws to go after journalists, to harass them, to intimidate them into silence. There's a long, unfortunate history of journalists being targeted. Asad Toor appears to be its latest victim. Now, he's accused of violating the cyber laws, section 20, which deals with dignity of a person. Now, he is a YouTuber. He criticizes government policies, court decisions. A lot of his journalism is based on unnamed sources. Now, you can like it or you can dislike it, but he hasn't necessarily committed a crime. And for the FIA to send him a notice, and then he cooperated with it, so far as I can tell, and all the reporting shows that he approached them when he found out that they wanted to question him. He volunteered. He didn't even wait for the notice to be served formally. He joined their questioning. They kept him for 8 hours, then they let him go. 2 days later, they sent him another notice. He approached the Islamabad High Court asking for protection against harassment and intimidation. Usually, the courts offer or grant a pre-arrest bail. In this case, they didn't. They told him to go join the inquiry and told the FIA not to harass him, which doesn't seem to have been really recognized by the authorities. And instead, they sent him on a physical remand, not for 1 or 2 or 3 days, but 5 days, which seems hugely excessive for a journalist, especially one who's cooperating already with your inquiries. And if you look at the complaint against Asad Toor, it is typical of these complaints against journalists. They are vague. There's no evidence. There are no screenshots. There is no transcription, as if no inquiry has really been done. And that gives rise to the suspicion that this is part of a witch hunt, that somebody somewhere in a powerful position didn't like what he was saying, and they decided to teach him a lesson. Now, this has a chilling effect on journalists across the country, because if cyber laws are used, if the FIA, the Federal Investigation Agency, is used to target journalists in this manner, then every working journalist across the country, invariably, we are working in the digital space. We are forced to wonder who's next, what might happen, who might come and arrest you, or detain you, or launch allegations against you. And basically, there's no room for it. We know that about 2 years ago, the government wanted to amend this notorious PECA law, the cyber law, and they wanted to expand the amount of, they wanted to expand its definitions. They wanted to, increase the sentences, jail terms, and that was struck down by the Chief Justice of Islamabad High Court, Atar Minullah. And he said this violates freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and the FIA then never really went and challenged that order because the government changed. It was happening under the Imran Khan government when he was the Prime Minister, and the ordinance was promulgated by the President Arif Alvi. This was only 2 years ago. It was struck down, and now we see, every now and then there are attempts to activate and weaponize this law against journalists. Now, I'm not saying that journalists have a free pass to defame anyone whenever they like. but there are other ways of tackling that. If, for example, a judge of the High Court or Supreme Court or the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court felt that some of Asad Toor's commentary was unfair or amounted to contempt, they could have issued him a contempt notice. But to use the civilian law enforcement agencies to punish journalists doesn't seem, there's any room for it in a democratic society. These are draconian measures, and they amount to high-handedness in our society. So usually when there is a crackdown against journalists, media people, it tends to coincide with an overall atmosphere in the country where some powerful people or institutions are trying to play havoc with the mandate of the people. They're trying to impose a leadership on the country, and they want to get away with it. They don't want to be criticized. They don't want to be questioned. They don't want to be exposed. So the last time we saw the cyber law being weaponized against journalists, and we saw the FIA being used against them, was soon after the 2018 election, which was an engineered election in which Imran Khan was brought, Nawaz Sharif was ousted through judiciary, and the journalists who were exposing this, who had covered the election, and who were questioning why this is being done, they were then targeted. And we saw the army's public relations wing and the Imran Khan government identifying journalists who were critical and going after them and teaching them a lesson. Now, this time around, the election was again hugely controversial. A lot of questions about pre-poll rigging, about results being delayed, about all sorts of questions, maybe even worse than 2018. One can only kind of draw a parallel that those who have questioned this election are exposing the rigging and the mandate of the public being stolen. They will be targeted, and so we have yet to see whether Asad Toor's arrest and the treatment is going to be part of a bigger pattern, or are they going to stop there and rethink that this doesn't serve the country? This doesn't serve our democracy. It doesn't serve the aspirations of our people. And already there is so much disappointment with the way election was conducted. Entire population of people who went out to vote feel disenfranchised. And to make matters worse, if you are going to go after journalists who are pointing some of these things, who are criticizing, it's going to make matters worse in the country. I have known journalists who have been targeted by our cyber laws, by the FIA. Most of these cases, in fact, a wide majority of these cases were orchestrated. They were designed to intimidate and harass these journalists, and they take a toll in many ways. I mean, journalists in Pakistan have to be thick-skinned. This is not a profession for the faint-hearted. But even then, when you are targeted by the FIA at the behest of either intelligence bosses or somebody powerful sitting somewhere, it takes a toll on you. In the last few years, we saw when they came after a journalist, they made sure to fire you to get you fired from your media house. So there's loss of earnings. Once they label you as anti-state, or the message goes out, the intelligence agencies are after you, then potential employers don't want to come close to you because nobody wants to hire a person who's being hounded by state institutions. So there's loss of earning. There's damage to your reputation because everybody is then talking about, what did he or she do, and you become a topic. Now, in journalism, we don't want to be a topic because we want to focus on other stories. But invariably, then you become controversial. It takes a personal toll as well. I know of one case in Karachi where a journalist who used to expose the nexus between clergy, extremist elements, and state institutions was targeted under this law by police, and his media house was told to fire him, withheld the pressure. But when the police shows up at your home and you are put behind bars, your children are scared, your neighbors look at you as if you are some kind of criminal. It took a toll on him. It took a huge toll on his health. And years have passed. His case is still pending. It hasn't been sorted. His health suffered. He endured a stroke. He's a young man, young family, but for a long time he was unable to even talk again. And so, because this happens with frequency and it's done brazenly by people in high offices, these stories are forgotten. The human toll it takes on working journalists. I mean, remember, we are not warriors. We haven't signed up to being killed or abused or being put into jail. We go to work, we do our work, we come home, right? So we in Pakistan, you of course you don't when you join the profession, you don't expect that this happens, especially if it's completely baseless, right? It has no grounds. So it takes a personal toll, financial toll, mental toll, emotional toll. There's another case I know where this journalist who was targeted, their family broke up. Or not a lot of spouses, for example, can put up with this sort of pressure. And then these are life-changing events for these individuals. The officials think we are teaching them a lesson, we are making an example out of them, but there is no room for any of this in a decent, civilized, democratic country, and we need to put an end to this.